Hello everyone, my name's Iman. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be covering Chapter 6 for our MCAT Physics and Math playlist, and this chapter is titled Circuits. In the last chapter, we explored the behavior of stationary charges, and we learned how charges interact when they're at rest. However, most real-world applications depend on the movement of charge, which we call current. So in this chapter, we're going to develop a thorough understanding of current and its applications, focusing on several key objectives. The first objective is titled Current. So we're going to discuss what current means, how conductivity allows charges to flow through materials, and we're going to explore essential circuit laws that govern electrical behavior. Next, we'll move into the topic of resistance. Here, we're going to define resistance and investigate the properties of resistors, which are components that control current in a circuit. We're also going to apply Ohm's law to understand the relationship between voltage, current, and resistance, and see how power is dissipated across resistors. Finally, we're going to examine how resistors behave when they're connected in series versus when they're connected in parallel. From there, we're going to shift our focus onto capacitors, which store electrical energy. We're going to define capacitance. This is the measure of a capacitor's ability to store charge. And we're going to discuss how dielectric materials increase this capacity. Similar to resistors, we're also going to explore how capacitors behave when they're connected in series versus when they're connected in parallel. And then finally, we're going to look at various instruments used to measure circuit properties. We're going to define ammeters, which measure current, voltmeters, which measure voltage, and ohm meters, which measure resistance. And understanding these tools will allow us to analyze circuits accurately in practice. Now that we have an overview, let's go ahead and begin with our first objective. What exactly is current? In simple terms, current refers to the flow of electric charge. And it might seem a little strange, but we actually define current as the flow of positive charge, even though in reality, it's the negative charges or electrons that are moving. This convention dates back to the early days of electricity, long before electrons were discovered. So when we talk about current flowing through a wire, we treat it as if positive charges are moving, even though the real movers are the electrons. Now, conductivity tells us how easily charges can flow through a material. And we categorize it into two main types. We have metallic conductivity and electrolytic conductivity. For metallic conductivity, this occurs in materials like copper and silver, where electrons move freely through the metal, allowing for efficient current flow. Electrolytic conductivity, this occurs in solutions such as salt water, where ions carry the charge. Now, conductance is closely related to conductivity, and it's defined as the reciprocal of resistance. In other words, a material with high conductance allows current to pass through it easily, while high resistance limits the flow. And the unit for conductance is the Siemens. Very unfortunate name, but it is what it is. Now, let's formalize our understanding of current. The magnitude of the current is equal to the amount of charge that flows through a conductor in a given time interval. We can express this mathematically like you see here, where I is current, and that's equal to Q, the amount of charge, divided by delta T, which is our time interval. This equation tells us that current depends on how much charge passes through and how quickly it flows. The SI unit for current is the ampere, which is equal to 1 coulomb per second. Now, understanding the movement of charge is really important, But so is recognizing the two distinct types of current, which are alternating current, AC, and direct current, DC. In direct current, the charge flows in one direction only, which makes it predictable and stable. This type of current is produced by sources like batteries, and it's used to power devices like flashlights or smartphones. Because the flow remains constant, it's easier to understand and analyze in basic circuits, which is why DC circuits are the primary focus on the MCAT. On the other hand, alternating current changes direction periodically. This type of current is produced by generators, and it's used for power distribution to homes and businesses. In an AC system, the voltage oscillates between positive and negative, causing the current to flow back and forth. And while AC is the backbone of power grids due to its efficiency over long distances, it won't be the focus in our discussion of circuits because only DC circuits are tested on in the MCAT. Now, these two graphs really illustrate the difference. In the graph for direct current, we see that voltage remains constant over time. But for alternating current, the voltage follows a sine wave, alternating between positive and negative as time progresses. Now, understanding the difference between these two types of current naturally brings us to the concept of voltage and how it drives current through a circuit. Voltage, or potential difference, it plays a crucial role in both DC and AC systems. Voltage is the difference in electric potential between 2 points in a circuit. And the unit of voltage is the volt, denoted as capital V. It is this push that causes electrons to move through a conductor, creating current. Even in DC circuits, where the current flows in one direction, voltage remains the underlying driving force. Another important term is the electromotive force, EMF, which is somewhat misleading because it isn't actually a force. Instead, it refers to the energy provided by a source, such as a battery or a generator, to move charge through a circuit. It's also measured in volt, and a key point to note here is that EMF represents the potential difference available even when no current flows, such as when a circuit is open. Though the name suggests a force, again, it's more accurate to think of the electromotive force as the energy source that initiates the movement of charge. And with that, we can begin to talk about circuit laws. Circuits operate under some key principles rooted in the laws of conservation. Specifically, charge and energy in a circuit must always be accounted for. They can neither be created nor destroyed, only transferred or transformed. And this idea is really fundamental to understanding how current and voltage behave in a circuit, and it's going to guide us as we analyze different circuit components. At its core, an electric circuit is simply a conducting path that allows charge to flow. Most circuits contain one or more voltage sources, like batteries connected to passive circuit elements such as resistors or capacitors. Together, these components form a complete path for current to flow through. To better understand how circuits maintain the conservation of charge and energy, we rely on Kirchhoff's laws, which govern current and voltage behavior in a circuit. These laws ensure that every part of a circuit fits together logically, and they allow us to systematically solve for unknown currents or voltages. We're going to start with talking about the junction rule. This applies to points in a circuit where current splits or merges. These points are called junctions, and this rule states that the sum of all currents flowing into a junction must be equal to the sum of all currents flowing out of the junction. So mathematically, this looks like current into junction is equal to current leaving junction. And this principle reflects the conservation of charge. No charge is lost or gained at the junction. What flows in must flow out. So for example, if a current of 3 ampere enters a junction and splits into 2 branches, one carrying 1 ampere, then the other branch must carry 2 ampere to satisfy this rule. What's coming in is what's coming out. What flows in must flow out. Then we have the loop rule. This applies to any closed path or loop in a circuit. It states that the sum of the voltage sources around the loop must be equal to the sum of the voltage drops across the circuit elements. In other words, the voltage of the source is equal to the voltage that drops. And this rule ensures that all the energy supplied by the sources is fully accounted for in the circuit, with none lost and none created. So for example, in a loop containing a battery providing 9 volts, for example, and 2 resistors, the total voltage drop across those resistors must also sum to 9 volts. This principle reflects the conservation of energy within the circuit. So by applying these 2 laws, the junction rule for current and the loop rule for voltages, we can analyze even complex circuits systematically. These tools are going to help us solve for unknown currents, voltages, and resistance, and that's going to be really important in tackling problems like the one we're going to jump into now. This problem says 3 wires, A, B, and C, meet at a junction P. A current of 5 amperes flows into point P along wire A, and a current of 3 amperes flows away from point P along wire B. What is the magnitude and direction of the current along wire C? Now, this problem is testing us on the junction rule. The junction rule applies to a point in a circuit where current splits or merges. These points are called junctions, which is what point P is. And the rule states that the sum of all currents flowing into a junction must be equal to the sum of all currents flowing out of the junction. Keeping this in mind, we're going to make an assumption here. Our assumption is that current flows away from point P along wire C. And we're going to test if this assumption is correct when we get our final answer. If our final answer is a positive value for current, that means that our assumption that current flows away from point P along wire C was correct. And if that value is negative, then that means that indeed the current flows in the opposite direction from what we assumed. From this assumption, we can start to solve the problem. The current in wire A is going to be equal to the current in wire B plus the current in wire C. And the reason we set this up is because current flows into the junction using wire A, and current flows out of the junction in wire B and C. Now we know that the current in wire A is 5 amperes, and we know that the current in wire B is 3 amperes, and we can go ahead and solve for the current in wire C. The current in wire C is going to be 5 minus 3 amperes, and this is equal to 2 amperes. Notice that this value is positive, which means our assumption is correct. Current flows away from P along wire C, and the current in wire C is equal to 2 amperes. With that, we've solved this problem, and we're going to go ahead and end this video here. In the next video, we're going to start objective 2. I hope that this was helpful so far. Please let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns down below. Other than that, good luck, happy studying, and have a beautiful, beautiful day, future doctors.